So one of my closest friends has type 1 diabetes, but the crazy part is most people just think, oh, you have diabetes, so you can't have sugar, which is actually not even close. This is something people have to live with. And because he's a close friend, I've seen a person that literally grew up with me, how he deals with it. And some of the stories that I'm going to share with you guys right now, actually, he just came to visit me, both my friends came to visit me in my city just right now, and I just shipped them off to the airport. But the point was, yes, we allowed ourselves to do a little bit of degenerate stuff for a little bit. But I asked him, hey, do you mind if I share some of this stuff online? Because I think it would be a huge eye opener to people who don't know anything about this. Especially, you don't know anything if you just think, oh, diabetes means you can't have sugar. That's bullshit. In fact, he needs sugar. So first off, I'll tell you a story. We don't live in the same city anymore, or for a while now. And at one point, my friend and another friend that I had, we went to New York from our city. We went to New York for a work trip. And it was also fun. We just went around. And at one point, I get the most random call. It's from my friend. He never calls randomly. Not like this. Not like a regular phone call. Not through a group chat. Just randomly a call from him. And I'm literally walking in downtown New York. And he calls me and he's like, where are you? And he's very panicked. Like a huge panic. You could hear it in his voice. And he's like, where are you? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, that's just kind of an odd question. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, no, dude, where are you? Where are you? And I was like, well, I mean, I texted in the group chat earlier that, I'm going to New York for a work trip. He's like, what? What are you doing in New York, dude? I was confused myself. I was like, why are you asking me this? This doesn't make any sense. Nobody just calls and asks, where are you? It's almost like he expected me to be there next to him. And I was like, all right, I think the better question is, where are you? Because all I hear is a bunch of loud noises coming from his side of the phone, and he sounds like he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. I was like, is he on drugs? Like, actually, did somebody give him mushrooms or something? What is going on? And then the call drops, and I tried calling him back, no answer, nothing. Maybe 10-15 minutes later, he calls me again and he's like, are you coming or what? Like, well, where are you? And I was like, you do know I don't live in your city anymore. Like, that's been years. Like, what is going on? Are you okay? Like, it sounds like there's some serious trouble. I'm telling him, hey, like, everything's good. And then he starts asking, why are the sirens here? And I hear it in the phone as well. They're like police sirens, ambulance sirens, those ones. And he's like, what's going on, man? He's like, tell me what's going on. I was like, I don't know what's going on. You have to tell me that. And it was the craziest conversation, because as soon as you hear that from your friend, you're just like, I get goosebumps all over my body. I was like, oh shit, like my heart just drops. I'm like, something is very, very wrong and something very bad happened. And this whole time we're literally in downtown walking around, and I'm like telling my other friend, can you call him? Maybe he's going to answer your phone, because why does the call keep dropping? And sometimes, it's like he would just put his phone down and I would hear everything, but it's just there. And I'd hear a bunch of banging. And I'm like, are you in your car right now? It sounds like he's in the car. I'm like, where are you? He's like, I'm in my car. I'm like, in your car where? At home? Like, what is going on? And he's like, I don't know, dude. The police are knocking on my window. They're knocking and I'm not opening the window. And there's no way I'm opening this car. I'm like, what did you do? What happened? He's like, I have no idea what happened. He just keeps saying, I don't know anything. Like, what's going on? And he's trying to ask me, like, what happened? And that's a very scary situation, because he kept this happened over a course of a couple hours, like calling, dropped calls. It was very chaotic. And sometimes he'd call and be like, why are there ambulances here? He's like, why is my mom standing there crying? And he was asking me that, and I'm like, dude, like in my head, I'm like, this guy, like, did he unalive someone with his car? Did his blood sugar drop too low and he did something really bad? Because you guys have to understand, if you accidentally miss what are all these injections, you did not calculate your carb consumption correctly, you're screwed. Like, you're really, really screwed. You just go out of your mind, and you can fall into a diabetic coma. And I was suspecting it's something like that, but I've just never see it play out like this. And apparently, so yeah, this kept continuing, and I told him, hey, you should probably like open your door, let them help you. I think, whatever is happening, you need some help. Just open the door. It's okay. And I kept telling him, open the door for them, unlock your car. Don't make them break your windows or something. I'm like, where are you? Like, are you at home? He says, I don't know. And yeah, no, it's crazy just remembering this. This happened probably 5 years ago. And yeah, and then I heard him, like the windows rolled down, everything got louder because, the sound came in, and then the call cut once again. And I didn't hear from him for hours. Like, those were the longest hours ever, because the whole time I'm on a work trip, I'm thinking, like, what is going on? Like, is he alive? Like, what happened to him? Are they taking him into the station? Did he do something really bad? Or is he in a bad condition? We don't know any of that. And at some point at night, he starts replying. He starts texting, and he's like, hey, I don't know what happened. He started apologizing. He's like, sorry for whatever I said. I have no idea what I said. But he's like, apparently I was in a diabetic shock, or basically he said my blood sugar dropped extremely low, and your mind starts working differently. So he was like, I apparently called a bunch of people, texted all these kinds of people. Probably he's like, texted my ex, your mom, parents, just messaged everybody, and he was freaking out. And he's like, yeah, now I have to tell everybody that, like, shit, like, I'm good. So thankfully he's good. And he explained what ended up happening and what they told him, because he says, I don't remember any of that. He says, whatever I said, I don't know anything of what happened. The entire day is unaccounted for. Just zero memory of that. And he's like, yeah, the doctors told me that, I was in diabetic shock. And essentially, he was parked right outside of there was this big apartment complex he lives in. He was parked right outside. He says he apparently was coming back from somewhere, and he didn't make it home in time to eat, or to take his carbs, or take some glucose in, to get some sugars in. And he ended up just parking right outside of the garage to the apartment complex, and he was probably blocking traffic, and he just stopped there. And eventually, of course, somebody called police, whatever, this and that, and his mom came outside. The story is very murky, but the point is, everything was fine. Like, he ended up fine. But this also does something bad to you, because whenever your brain is that low on sugars and stuff, and you're in a shock and you go into a coma, you have brain damage. You actually get brain damage. They look at it and you're like, okay, like, this is bad, because you probably, once you pass out, you don't get oxygen, and that's brain damage. So all this stuff is really serious, and obviously you're not supposed to let that happen. This is what they scare you with, like, you don't want to go into diabetic shock or comas. But this stuff is so seriously. I saw my friend live through it, and on top of that, it just in general, living your life like this, he always carries needles with him, a juice bottle, a large bottle of juice, some kind of glucose pills, fast absorbing, fast acting, in case you need to increase your blood sugar, and you constantly have to keep it at a certain level. And on top of that, he has all these sensors on his body and that connect to his phone, which is pretty cool that technology can do that now, because when we were younger, that was way more of a pain in the ass to monitor. But all sorts of alarms go off. Hey, it's time to take the injection, time to take these pills, time to check your blood sugar is too low, your blood sugar is too high. All these sorts of alarms go off from his phone, and it's on full sound, because this is literally like your life, right? And everywhere we were just these past couple of days, we were all hanging out, and we'll be in public, and his phone would just blast some kind of random things, and we understand, like, hey, there's nothing you can do about that. You have to monitor it. There's no way you can remember everything. But people in public, they look at, like, they think, you know what they're thinking, like, why the hell is this guy's notifications on that loud? Because it'll be uncalled for. You'll be in a quiet place and this shit blares. At night, you hear these things, they'll wake you up at night. This is a constant cycle of monitoring the blood sugar, because your body doesn't balance it out itself, essentially. You need to inject insulin to reduce it after every meal. So imagine this, and probably people who train and who work out can understand what it's like to track your food intake. But in this case, you can't miss it. You have to account for every single thing that goes into your mouth. Every single thing. Especially if it has carbs. Because you have to count it, and then you have to understand how much units of insulin you're supposed to inject yourself right after the meal. Sometimes, let's say we're out in public. This guy has to pull out a needle and start doing that in public, right? And people look and people are like, hey, like, what the hell are you gonna do, right? You have to live with it. And it's an ongoing process. This makes it really hard for the individual to actually carry on with their own lives. And it's actually insane how, like, this guy has been through more shit than any of us, and he has to continuously, he has to work like anybody else. He has to go to work. He has to make sure he's healthy, right? And luckily enough, he's a strong enough person to do all that. You know, he has a good job. He's a mechanic. Works out. He's absolutely jacked, and doing just normal life stuff like having a girlfriend. You know, just getting on with everything. All while, like, half of your mind is consumed by blood sugar, this, that, food, injections, constantly. It's hard for him to come out to a trip to another city because he doesn't have his pharmacies here, his doctor, and it's a huge risk. And he has to bring the right amount of insulin and everything, because if you're short, like, you're not just going to get it randomly. You can't just get it. Right? Everything has to be so accounted for. And as humans, we're not perfect. We make mistakes. We forget things. You can forget to eat. You can forget to drink. You'll get thirsty. You'll drink later. And in his case, he can't. It's like, hey, I think he's like, I think I'm getting hungry. If I'm getting hungry, my blood sugar is low. Guys, we have to go eat right now. And we stop whatever we're doing. It doesn't matter how inconvenient. We're going to go eat. Because if you don't, you're risking a huge problem. And everywhere we go, he's carrying around a bag with all these kinds of sugary snacks, because sugar absorbs very quickly if you need to increase your blood sugar level. So despite all that, being able to, or trying to live a normal life is extremely difficult, because me just spending time with him, seeing how much shit you have to go through all the time, just all of the time, it never stops. Not even when you're sleeping. You know, one time he was sleeping in the same room as me, and like, what the hell? Like, out of nowhere, and it's like this huge alarms go off, and I woke up and I was like, dude, don't you hear that? And he's like sleeping. He's like, nah, what is it? And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's your, like, blood sugar sensor. It's very loud. It's like an alarm. Like, it's like 9/11. I don't know what do you call it, but it's like very, very serious. I'm like, I think that means your blood sugar is low. And this is like 5 a.m. You know, I'm like, it interrupts your sleeps, right? And he's like, oh yeah, whatever. You know, he's still sleeping. I'm like, what if you don't wake up? So I'm trying to wake him up. I'm like, yo, dude, like, drink some juice right now. Like, we're not taking you to the hospital in 10 minutes. You know, none of that shit's happening. And has to get up, get his glucose in, get his sugars in, restore everything, and then if there was a bit too much, you put an injection to reduce the level. You have to keep a certain balance, and if it's not in balance, you just cause bodily damage to yourself. Like, your body operates at a specific balance, right? And then you go back to sleep, and this is every night, every day, all the time, right? And that's what you got to do, right? And it's the people who are going through that. It's very, very, like, nobody actually understands it. Nobody actually sees it. And if I didn't have that guy as a friend, I would never even know. I would just be like the rest of the people, thinking, oh, you have diabetes, so you, like, can't have sugar. Like, that's not at all what it is. Not at all. And every time you make a mistake, it costs you your life. Like, it costs. There's no such thing as, like, you know, it's impossible to not make mistakes as humans. You know, you're supposed to watch this stuff, but when I mean things cost you, it costs you. Like, this guy, he said he was working at work. He's like, yeah, I was just working, and then I woke up in the ER. He's like, that's it. That's the story. I was working, mechanic, I woke up in the ER. That's the story. And then you have to track back. Yep, apparently somebody saw him walking up the stairs. He fell, Fell as in because his blood sugar was low. Once again, you start losing your mind a bit. You don't understand. You lose your balance. Fell. You hit your head really bad. Something happens. You get a concussion. You're in the ER, but you're in a diabetic coma. He's like, yeah, apparently he was in a diabetic coma for a few hours, and they were pumping all the stuff into him. And they're like, oh, now there's new scar tissue or whatever, like some kind of lines on the brain scan. Like these constant doctor visits, maintaining everything, and he's like, yeah, for a few days I had no idea what my name was. I did not recall anything. It's just everything was like super a blur. And, imagine a doctor gives him a prescription and says, hey, take this. You need this kind of go get your prescription. To a pharmacy. Pharmacy asks you, hey, what's your first name, last name? He's like, you're not gonna believe this, but I don't know. And they're like, all right, bro, take out your ID. Let's start taking down your information, right? Because this shit's serious. And sometimes this is kind of brain damage as well. On top of that, like on top of memory loss, it doesn't repair. Some of it repairs. He says, yeah, he continuously has brain scans, blah, blah, blah. Some of it repairs, some of it doesn't. And it stays on it. And that could be like fragments of memories. That could impact your thinking. It could make your thought process heavier. And it's very, very serious. And I think a lot of people don't actually know what it's like. That there are people quietly going through their own struggles. And imagine how unfair it sounds when a person who is perfectly healthy, nothing wrong with them, complains about their life. Like, how ungrateful do you have to be to complain about your life when you're healthy? There's nothing wrong with you. When there are people like this who are managing to not only survive, but live a pretty decent life, do everything you can do, but with a huge setback, a huge condition. Imagine that, and you're complaining. So for those people who don't even know, like, just be more grateful for what you have yourself, because there are people who are way worse off. And this is just a couple of the stories, but there's a lot more that goes on there. Anyway, thanks for watching.